whether it be from the bima from which he has spoken on a number of occasions, over a cup of coffee, or just when we bump into each other at the gym. I have learned a lot from our darshan, from Robert Sachs, and therefore it is a pleasure, as always, to be able to share the bima with him once again.
Thank you, Rabbi. Nothing like lowering people's expectations. Thank you. Thank you. Louder? Is that better? Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova. Before I share some Divrei Torah, I just want to recognize that on the bima this morning, I had my fellow Torontonians, Cindy Olch and Ron Olch, and I think I'm going to stretch the rules of hockey and declare that a hat trick for Canadians today. For Torontonians on the bima today. And I'll add in Marty Lasker from Winnipeg, and then we'll have, I think, a Canadian record on the Adat Ariel bima. In Vayelech, Moses and Joshua write down what the Torah calls a song to deliver to the Israelites. God commands them to do so and teach it to the children of Israel. In Hazinu, Moses indeed teaches to them, though it's a song that falls harshly on their ears. It's not a song of comfort. It's not a song of encouragement as they stand poised to enter and fight for the land. It's not a song that one would expect to hear in that situation. It's a song of rebuke. It's a rebuke of Israel's faithlessness in the past and a prediction of their faithlessness in the future. It's a rather bleak and at times bitter rant of farewell from their leader Moses, whom God will then send off to die. As God does so, he reminds Moses that he may not enter the land because Moses and Aaron broke faith with me at the waters of Meribah Kadesh by failing to uphold my sanctity among the Israelite people. And if you recall, it was at Meribah Kadesh where the Israelites were complaining and saying that, why did you bring us to this wretched place, a place with no grain or figs or pomegranates? There's not even water to drink. And Moses and Aaron go to God for guidance on what to do, and God tells them to take the rod and speak to a rock which will bring forth water to the Israelites. But Moses, as he does on several other occasions, loses his temper, strikes the rock, and water comes forth, but he does not sanctify God and does not properly acknowledge God for his role in that miracle, and therefore that's what God refers to when he says, you failed to uphold my sanctity, and that's why you may not enter the land. So I thought about that, and I said, why won't God forgive Moses? In a parsha that's read on Shabbat Shuvah, during the 10 days of Teshuva, when judgment hangs in the balance but is not yet sealed, why does Moses receive such harsh treatment? And what might we learn about the nature of Teshuva from this? One possible explanation is that Moses simply failed to make Teshuva for his breaking faith, and God was not therefore obligated to forgive him. According to the Torah, Moses makes no apology to God immediately following the incident at Meribah Kadesh. Moses and Aaron simply accept the judgment and move on to other business. As Rabbi Gunther Pleads says in his commentary, Moses and Aaron apparently considered the divine judgment to be just and knew it to be irreversible. Perhaps this was because Moses and Aaron felt that the rebelliousness of the people at Meribah indicated that they were no longer able to lead them. They had crossed a generational divide. They were in the final days of their power, and a new leader would soon be chosen. From Moses' point of view, it may have seemed that there was no point in making Teshuvah for something that was beyond his control. How often have many of us lacked the courage to make Teshuvah? We fail to try to right a wrong we have committed, rationalizing our lack of action by saying that it was beyond our control. There's no changing what happened. Perhaps we can't change what happened, but with appropriate effort, might we not have a chance to make amends to repair a damaged relationship, or improve ourselves so that we might avoid doing wrong in the future. It's also possible God did not forgive Moses because he not only failed to apologize, he went a step further and blamed the Israelites for what happened. In chapter 3 of Devarim, Moses pleads with God to allow him to enter the land. God refuses, and Moses says in an aside to the Israelites, "The Lord was wrathful with me on your account and would not listen." Here again, Moses loses his patience with the people, as he did at Meribah. He can't seem to let go of the anger he feels towards the people he led out of slavery and carried through the desert. 40 years of whining, backsliding, and murmuring can have that effect. But it seems that Moses can't figure out how to move on. A new chapter is about to begin for the people, a chapter he won't participate in. He's tired. He, as he says, can no longer go out and come in, and he knows he will die soon. Perhaps Moses thought it was too late to make Teshuva. Instead, he gives in to his anger and delivers the bitter song that speaks critically of Israel and predicts dire consequences for their future actions against God. However, Rabbi David Hoffman of the Jewish Theological Seminary suggests another way of looking at what Moses did in Hazinu. Rabbi Hoffman discusses Maimonides' teaching on Teshuva, which emphasizes the importance of confession in the process. Teshuva cannot be limited to an internal process of reflection. It must also be expressed in words. Maimonides says in the first line of his Hilchot Teshuva, the Laws of Teshuva, all commandments of the Torah, if a person transgresses one of them, whether intentionally or unintentionally, when he performs Teshuva and repents for his sin, he is obligated to confess before the Almighty. For it says in Bamidbar, a man or a woman who commits any of the sins of man, they shall confess their sin that they have committed. And this refers to verbal confession. This confession constitutes an affirmative command. Maimonides stresses that the more one engages in verbal confession and he elaborates on this subject, the more praiseworthy one is. It's a process akin to psychotherapy, which Freud described as the talking cure. Teshuva, says Rabbi Hoffman, is deciding who we most want to be. Moses addresses the people several times at the end of Devarim. In its totality, it's a remarkable torrent of words that may really be about Moses working out his feelings about the people and his relationship with them, and just who Moses wants to be as his leadership and life come to an end. Moses, like the rebellious, murmuring Israelites, is, in a theme that Rabbi Bernhard is developing, fundamentally messed up. And he's trying to work it out. It's not easy. At first, all that comes out is rebuke. This is 40 years of anger coming out. Moses is trying to understand who he is, why he's put up with the murmurers and the rebels and fat-kicking Yeshurun for so long. He may also be ashamed of the anger he feels, but he gets it out, and in so doing, he changes. He realizes who he has been, and more, whom he most wants to be. I don't think Moses wants his final words to the people to be bitter words. So he follows the rebuke with a blessing, as we'll read in Vizot HaBracha. With the blessing, he becomes the loving Moses that we choose to remember. By confessing his anger and doing the work necessary to overcome it, Moses makes Teshuva with himself, with the people, and even, perhaps, with God. Shabbat Shalom.